Well, good morning, everybody. Father Chris here again. Good to see everybody. I know you're watching me on Facebook or our YouTube page right now, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a fantastic opportunity that we have at our school, St. Joseph Catholic School. Some of you may not know this, but we have a wonderful school here that goes from pre-K 3, the 3-year-olds, up until 8th grade. And the school itself has been around since 1955, so we're celebrating 65 years this year of our anniversary. And it's gone through different changes over the years. At the beginning, it was just some basic Army buildings that came from Fort Hood that we, at the beginning, we didn't have very much money here in the parish. Not that we have a ton now, but we didn't have very much at all at the beginning. So the Army donated, I believe, or we purchased them at a very cheap price back in the 1950s, and had the school getting going then, and it worked, and it was servicing the needs that we had. And then over time, as the parish began to grow, and Killeen, the city, began to grow, and other things began to take place here in the parish, especially with a lot more parishioners who were settling here and staying here. The parish in 1974 made the decision to build a school, to build an actual building, a new building that was just there for the school. It didn't have to be kind of tailor-made as the Army barracks were to become something that they weren't designed to be. But now the school was meant to be just there to service the kids. So that school is the current building that we have now in the year 2020. So it's been there for 46 years. And over the years, we've gone through different ways of learning how to teach people and education and different things. And there have been personnel that have come and gone and come and gone. And in my short tenure that I've been here for the past 5 years, we've gone through a couple of different principles, and finding the right person for the right fit for the right job has always been, in any kind of job you do, that's always a little bit of a challenge. But I believe we're in a really, really excellent place right now with our school. And I'm about to, if you're wondering who this guy is, I'm about to introduce him, so just bear with me one sec. Last year, we brought in, our principal at the time decided that he was going to go up to relocate to another state. So we began a search for a new principal. And we had about 5 or 6 people who we interviewed. And we had a little interviewing committee, and we went through the interviewing process. And one of the things that I was looking for in a principal was there's a model, there's a teaching model. It's called the classical model of education. And without getting into a lot of detail, because I'll let this man tell you a little bit more about it, it's a really fantastic model of teaching that is ancient. It goes all the way back to the times of the Greeks and the Romans. Eventually, it would become perfected by the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages, that combined just basically the use of reason and logic with faith, because ultimately education is about coming to know the truth. So this classical model, it kind of sort of went, I don't want to say underground, but it just sort of faded a little bit in the past 40 or 50 years. But now it's kind of having a resurgence, because you see the quality that comes out, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. But right now, I just want to introduce our principal, Mr. Dirk Steffens. He's got 1 year under his belt as the principal, and I just want him to just tell you just maybe a little bit about your own background, and then tell us a little bit about what it is that the classical model is, and why it is that parents should consider sending their kids to St. Joseph Catholic School as a part of this.
Well, a little bit about me. I'm a former stockbroker. I did that for many years. I did that for about 10 years before I went into education. Studied theology, both as a bachelor's and a master's at the University of St. Thomas in Houston, and then got a master's in educational leadership. Kind of bounced around to a couple of different schools, taught at Straight Jesuit in Houston, taught at Riker in Waco, spent a year in Santa Fe, then came here to Killeen. And it's been a really fun year. And one of the reasons I came to Killeen whenever I interviewed with Father Chris is whenever he mentioned classical education. Because for me, it's the best educational model there's ever been. It's called classical because it's classic. It is the way students learn. The students learn by observing the world around them, experiencing the world around them. That's what you do with classical education. And there's beauty in it. But it's not just for the students, but it's for the teachers too. When you see the joy on the teachers' faces when they receive their new textbooks or new novels that they're going to be teaching, you can just see how the teachers are going to teach. In the classical model, the teachers actually get to teach. Where in the traditional model that we see around in the public schools and so on, the teachers teach to a test. Where in the classical model, we teach to teach. We teach the subject matter. We teach students how to think, not what to think. Where in the public schools, a lot of times they'll just give you the information and expect the students to regurgitate or give it back to you. But the classical model, we teach them how to think about the world around them. And every subject is interweaved with each other. You don't just focus on math and then go to reading. It's all interweaved. It's all within one, subject, and they interrelate with each other. And that's the beauty of the classical model. And whenever I say we teach the students how to think, you'll a lot of times hear teachers ask, "What do you think?" They'll give the student a paragraph or something to read, and then the teacher will ask, "Well, what do you think?" And the student will respond to that, and then they explore why they think that way. They actually delve into why they think that. And it's not just in reading, it's in math. Well, why does this work this way? But on the spiritual side of it, it is actually very beautiful. Some of the things that we read are the beauty in the readings. There's the beauty in the math. And it's not just beauty in religion, but there's beauty in every subject that there is.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I know that part of the classical model is something called the trivium, right? So can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe share with us how that works or what it is and how it's brought into the school of teaching.
Well, each grade level, we still have grade levels, but they're kind of balanced between different subjects. You have the logic, you have the grammar, you have the different levels, and it reaches the students at their particular level. A kindergartner is going to understand, let's say, math at a very basic level compared to a third grader, and that grammar and logic, they grow into a different level itself.
Okay, so in the trivium then it begins, I think, with grammar, right? And so you kind of get the mechanics of grammar that I believe also in this classical model that we're going to be doing includes Latin a little bit. Can you talk just about that part?
The Latin part, they call it a dead language, which I strongly disagree with. But you look at Latin, and it's different than a lot of other foreign languages that students can learn. It actually teaches a student how to think about the language. You could take a particular word in Latin, a 4-letter word, and it could be expanded out to 12 letters, and it means something completely different. So the student actually has to logically think about the word. And that's how Latin kind of delves into all the different subjects itself, because Latin is the root language of many of our languages. So studies show that a student that learns Latin will be able to learn other languages easier, but also be able to logically think about subjects, any type of subject, not just reading, but math and science and everything.
So they begin to see that there's an order to the universe, that there is structure in language, and knowing how to put sentences together, seeing that there are nouns and there's verbs and there's adjectives and there's adverbs and there's prepositional phrases. And I'm going back to my youth when I was taught some of these things. But so it begins with the grammar, and they're able to kind of grasp and start to see that language, sentence structure is coherent, and as part of that kind of sees that there's a coherency in the world, in the universe, and that definitely pertains to language and grammar. So after they begin to really kind of do well with the grammar, they start to take on something else, logic. Can you talk a little bit about logic?
Well, that's really the critical thinking part. You'll hear the term Socratic method in teaching a lot in classical education. That really comes into play in the logic area. It goes back to what I said earlier. Teacher will say, well, what do you think? The Socratic method is a lot of argumentative. It's discussion. It is not just reading something, but is actually figuring out why the world is the way it is. even in the science and in math. You know, you take a science, you know, we only discovered science, God created it. And the logic helps us understand the world around us.
Yeah.
In a much deeper way.
Sure. You know what's really cool, everybody? You can see how this fits into faith. The word that Mr. Steffens is using, logic, it actually is derived from the word logos, right? And logos is what the Apostle John, when he wrote the gospel, he said, in the beginning was the word, is what we see in the translation in the Bible. But it's actually a Greek word. It says, in the beginning was logos, and logos became flesh and dwelt among us. So God is logic, and that Jesus is logic. So when we understand Jesus, he's just not some faith figure, but the Word of God, the logic of God is made flesh in the person of Jesus Christ. So you begin to see that faith and reason are very much compatible in how we understand faith and reason in the proper sense of the word. So that word logos, or reason, is what John uses to describe who God is. So you see God in nature because you see logos in nature. All things are created through him, is what the scriptures tell us. So I think that's really cool how that works out like that. And everything that we study, whether it be biology or even methodology or anything that ends in O-G-Y, L-O-G-Y, comes from logic, comes from logos, comes from reason, comes from word. So it forms the basis of everything that we do, and even, of course, the word logic that we just talked about. So, okay, going from logic, we move then into rhetoric. Can you just share a little bit about rhetoric?
Rhetoric, how we speak, how we write, how we think. For instance, in the school, this coming school year, we have implemented in our 6th and 7th grade that students will be taught speech and debate. Students need to be able to speak properly, write properly, and that's a big part of the rhetoric part of it itself. You know, one of the great rhetorics, my favorite is St. Augustine. He was a wonderful speaker, and that's where rhetoric comes into play. Students and adults even need to be able to speak, need to be able to write properly, and not only speak and write, but understand it. And yes, we'll be teaching cursive in school.
Great.
But the rhetoric is not the completion of the understanding or the learning of classical. It is the continuing building of that, the continuing building of the understanding of the logic, of the grammar, and being able to express yourself properly.
Right. So they kind of build off each other. You start with the grammar, then the logic, like you said, makes you think critically, and then the rhetoric helps you to speak persuasively, to be able to as you said, use speech and debate, to be able to speak in such a way that influences other people and leads them to a desire, opens up that desire within their heart to pursue truth, right?
Exactly, and being able to express yourself, and with confidence and accuracy.
Excellent. So that's what we are doing here at St. Joseph Catholic School. We're not just simply a Catholic school with, saints and statues of saints and, and those kinds of things, but we're we go much deeper than that. And in addition to the classical model that is building on all these things, of course, as a Catholic school, we'll be having Mass every week, and confession is always available. The sacramental life of the church is always available as well. And we are opening, since we're going now to an 8th grade, we are opening it up a little bit to extracurricular events and athletics and these kinds of things. You just wanted to share quickly a little about that?
We will be having sports this coming fall. Some of them might be kind of different, but it's archery. Looking at archery, soccer, golf, volleyball, basketball, and maybe some others, maybe softball. That is just some, and cheerleading. We're actually going to have a cheerleading group too. But also other extracurricular, we have a new music teacher this year, which we're very excited about also. So we're going to have a band this year and a choir, and we're looking at a whole lot of different options. So if a student is interested in something, we might have it, or we can build the program into it.
Excellent.
That's one of the things I love about the classical model. You have these extracurriculars, but it makes us so much more flexible than the previous models that we were in. We can do so many different things to reach the students.
Right. and they all, like you said, they're all kind of integrated. Even the extracurricular activities relate back to truth and beauty and goodness and
Absolutely.
and all of these pursuits that are part of our humanity. So you really kind of become a full human person. You know, a real genuine, what do I want to say? A real genuine humanity, a real human dignity, because that's what we talk about in the church, is human dignity. Well, you know, the mind is something that needs to be cultivated and cared for and educated. So, and not just education of the mind, but the body, the soul, everything. It's a full integration of everything. So, if you have children or grandchildren, and you would like to know a little bit further about this, you want to just tell them a little bit about how it is that they could maybe inquire a little bit more?
You can go to our website, sjcskilleen.org, or just give the school a call, 254-634-7272.
Okay, and if they call and they do that, what can they
Yeah, just call and talk to one of the front office staff or Miss Garcia, or if they're not available, you can reach me, or just pop by the school, where we're actually going to be closed next week, but we're generally open 9 to 3, Monday through Thursday through the summer, and just pop in, we'll have a talk.
Great. You get a tour of the school and know a little bit more about everything. So thank you again, Mr. Steffens. Enjoyed our conversation here, our interview, and please consider that. At the very least, just inquire a little bit more about the school and the classical model yourself, so you can reach that human potential that God has given to every one of us. So God bless you, and have a wonderful day.